But let's get to LeBron James and LeBron Watch 2026 because that is right now the most fluid story going on in the NBA right now. Um, Obviously, when we signed off, I mean, look, this is not a surprise because we said that it was going to happen, and literally an hour after we signed off the podcast, Lakers, he announced to the Lakers that he's not going to be resigning. Now, obviously, I think that's him doing the PR thing because I think the Lakers had no interest in actually wanting him back to the team. There was no offer sent towards him and none of that, so not a surprise there. Before we get to LeBron's future, real quick, and where he may or may not go, would you deem LeBron's 8 years in LA a success or a failure?
I would say it was a success. I mean, they won one title. I mean, I guess people can debate the veracity of that title, but the reality is, for a guy who was later on in his career, he still won one. I mean, it wasn't like he went there when he was 26 years old.
Yeah.
So I mean, you go there in your, mid-30s and win one title. I would consider that a success. I mean, I'm sure he would have liked to have won more, but it is what it is. It wasn't as successful as his previous stints, but what do they say? Winning a title means never having to say you're sorry. So typically that's said though in regards to GMs and trades, like when you trade. Like in the case of the Knicks, you trade 5 picks for Mikal Bridges, but you wind up winning the title. You don't have to apologize for that. This wasn't a trade necessarily, but yeah, I think one title, considering the age when he got there, wasn't unreasonable.
It's tough because with LeBron James, whether fair or unfair, where he goes to, it's on. And I think a lot of it's unfair too because of the age he's at too. Also, expectations do follow. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And yes, he won a title. Yeah, and it's important. He won a title. Now, people again, you said people are going to question the bubble because it's a bubble, of course. But he won a title, and I would argue that I would take the opposite of that conversation about the bubble. I think it's harder to win in that environment than the way around because now everything's even. You know what I'm saying? Mm. He did it anyway, but around that one title, it's a lot like chaos. Okay, so you went to one conference final in those 8 years, in addition to the championship. Okay, and then there's a lot of missed playoffs. There's a lot of first round exits. There's a lot of failure in there too, also. And the reason why I can't go so far, I won't call it a failure because when you win a championship, it can't be a failure. Can't. It's just illogical to say that. But to call it a overwhelming success is also hard because of the fact that you did have a guy with you that, for a large part of that tenure in Anthony Davis, was a top 5 player in the league, went healthy, and some of it didn't work. You had situations where you brought in Russell Westbrook to help with that core, and that was a failure, abominable failure. In fact, they didn't make the playoffs the one year he was there, to the point they put him on the bench during next year. So it's hard. It's hard to call it a success also too. I'm trying to avoid playing both sides here. But to me, it feels like there was more chaos in those 8 years in the Lakers than there was more success. So that one title, especially given when it happened, gets a little bit muddled, bro. That's the thing. So I'm not going to call it a failure, but I have a hard time calling it a success as well too.
Well, I would look at it 2 ways. One, I mean, look at when Dwayne Wade retired. So, I mean, he retired years ago, and LeBron's still playing. So, basically, similar age, and he's still continued his career well past the expiration of most guys.
And, so, I mean, that's the rub.
I'm not going to necessarily judge him. Like, let's say he goes back to Cleveland, they don't win anything. Like, I'm not going to judge a guy at 42 for what he did. Like, he's held to an impossible standard.
I agree.
I guess heavy is the head that wears the crown. So, I mean, I can see that. But also, the second point, which might be a more important point, is that the last 8 years, there have been 8 different champions. So, I mean, Nikola Jokic, in that same time that LeBron was with the Lakers, has only won 1 title. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum only won 1 title. Does that mean that those guys are all failures or that they were underwhelming or whatnot? I mean, it's the nature of the parity that's in the league.
It's a point Nick Wright made on the herd last week, actually. So yeah, I've heard that too. Also, he did make the same point too. Also, Nick Wright, the biggest LeBron apologist on the planet. Well, one of them anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be like a huge LeBron apologist here. I'm just saying that when you look around,
you're not. League, you're very logical.
No one has dominated the last decade. And I think considering that guys in his class retired a long time ago, to say that he should have dominated the last decade in his mid to late 30s is probably an unrealistic expectation. So the fact that he won one title at that time, I'm not saying it was an overwhelming success, but I'm also not saying that it was a failure. I mean,
I'm with you.
Would the Lakers have signed up when they signed him in 2019, or 2018, knowing that they would win one title? There are a lot of teams that didn't win one title during that period. So,
well, given Lakers at the time too, also they were rebuilding. Literally, they were complete shit for a good while before LeBron got there. And I agree with you. I'm pretty much on the same page here. I think what hurts it for me more than anything else is that it's not even the titles, lack of titles. That doesn't bother me. It's the fact that there's so many missed playoffs. There's so many first-round exits, not even in the conversation, that really bugs me with that whole thing. That's what it is. It's like what makes Tom Brady and the Patriots so great even late in his career, same age range, all that, and granted, different sports, we get all that. It's not that they kept winning titles. It's that even if they didn't win titles, they were always in the conversation. That's the success of the Patriots for me, is that they never fell off. There was no fall-offs. It was like, okay, well, we might lose in an AFC title game or lose in a Super Bowl or even the playoffs. With the Lakers, there was none of that. There was actually, when it was bad, it was really bad. It was no playoffs. It was first-round exits. It was disaster Russell Westbrook, all that. And again, all this while having Anthony Davis for a chunk of those years and then Luka Doncic the last 2 years. So that's why I judge it in a sense. Now, like I said, I do agree with you, not a failure. Totally agree with you on that, not a failure. But a success, I think comes out of this. Do you think, now, granted, my view on the bubble is different from everybody else's. I think the bubble is actually harder to do what they did than easier, in my opinion. Do you think the Lakers, if COVID doesn't happen, the pandemic is not a thing, and you can replay that year how it was playing out until that March happened where they stopped play. Now, granted, the Lakers were on fire anyway. They were like I think number one in the West at the time too also. Do you think the Lakers complete the job? There's something to be said that they may not, simply because Anthony Davis may not stay healthy, because that's who he's been for his entire career in the NBA, for out. So there's that argument too also.
Yeah, I would say that they wouldn't have won that title only because it wasn't just AD, but LeBron also got 4 months off. Yeah. So basically in the middle of the season, you didn't have that wear and tear leading up to it. It's like with Paul George last year. The argument was, he looked so good in the playoffs. Well, he also had 25 games off, so he missed a quarter of the season that he wasn't putting wear and tear on his legs. So when you get that gap, it's easier to come back with fresh legs. So I think that did help them, but there's pros and cons of it. The pro was that they got all that time off. The con is that, to your point, it's not an easy atmosphere to play in because you have to leave everything outside of it. You're basically, in a prison ground for, a couple months because, you're in a compound that you can't leave because they didn't want it to get, they didn't want COVID to get into it. So, and there were guys that didn't want to be there. So, I don't think that it was an easy thing to do for an extended period of time, but at the same time, physically, he was in a better shape and AD was in a better shape to perform than they would have been had they continued on and then gotten to May and June, and they probably wouldn't have had their legs left. So,
all right. So having said that, now we're on LeBron watch now, 2026. It seems that right now Cleveland is the heavy favorites. It seems like all the energy right now is going to Cleveland, which is what I said for the last couple months, that if LeBron, which I think he does still, he's still top 15 player in the league in my opinion, values the narrative and how he's perceived in the media, in the league, all that stuff. The narrative that seems to be, I believe, acceptable for people to say, especially if they win the title next year, is going to Cleveland. Because again, Cleveland Cavaliers, have been a team that is good enough to compete for titles, but they have the talent certainly to do it. but can't get over that hump. This year, they got swept in the Knicks in the conference finals, and that they just need one more piece to get over the hump. And LeBron seems, hypothetically in the situation would be the piece to get over the top. And I feel like that is the only situation for LeBron James that would be acceptable to say. And again, this is what people who care about that kind of stuff. LeBron versus Jordan arguments. Oh, he's the GOAT, he's not the GOAT. The only, bullet in the chamber to use to change the perception of that is going to Cleveland and being the savior once again, being a title again for the second time in a little over 10 years will be if it happens. But it seems like look, Cleveland right now is the heavy favorites so far to get him. And you think that's where he's going?
I think he's either going to Cleveland or Miami, with Philadelphia being a long shot. I mean, Miami might be a little bit of a long shot too. I don't really see him staying in the West. I know everybody mentioned Golden State, me being one of them, because it just seemed like they were making moves to do that.
Made sense too.
But if his goal is to win a title, having to go through OKC, having to go through San Antonio, likely having to go through both of them, and you've only got 1-2 years left max in your career, and that's what you're gunning for. I would imagine that he's got a better chance getting out of the East, especially with, Boston maybe taking a step back. We could discuss that. Philadelphia being uncertain. Obviously on paper a lot better, but injury concerns and whatnot with Embiid. So I think it's probably a little more wide open in the East. Cleveland's, the fit with him and Harden might not be ideal, but I guess I look at it from the standpoint, so everyone's saying, oh, Cleveland will be the worst fit basketball wise. It's like he can replace Dean Wade. They were trotting out Dean Wade for long stretches of that series.
You got a lot of money though, Dean Wade.
And he was drawing dead in those matchups. So I think LeBron is good enough to replace him. Would they then consider moving Jared Allen to maybe get another wing to get some more shooting? Can Harden play off the ball where he's, not monopolizing it? I don't know. I know Mitchell can play off the ball. But I guess I just wonder if they have enough perimeter shooting, and do they need to move someone to add him, or is it just a straight minimum? I feel like with Miami, the fact that there's no state income taxes, he can afford to take less and then not be taxed as much, and then maybe it's a little more palatable from that standpoint.
And they're saying, there's reports now that remember we discussed a couple weeks ago on the podcast that he wouldn't take a pay cut, and now we're now hearing things that since then they've changed their stance on that.
I think that was just a way for him to not go back to the Lakers. I think it was like, I'm not taking a pay cut to stay with the Lakers, but I think to go out elsewhere and win a title, and we can talk about the Lakers later since they made a whole bunch of moves, but that's not.
They did a lot. They took that LeBron's cap hold and spread it well, pretty well.
Yeah, they spread it around. I don't know if they spread it around well, but they spread it around for sure.
I should have saved that for the. I should have saved that for the. I'll save it for the back end of the show. The Lakers topic.
Yeah, but I don't know. I guess I look at Miami and I say he will play a bigger role there because they have way less depth. I think in Cleveland, it'll be a little easier for him to get lost in the mix. So I don't know what his goals are. If he does go to Cleveland and that gets them into the finals or the East Finals, it's more of a savior type thing. If he wants to play a bigger role and maybe not have as much and maybe get a little more money, Miami is an option. I think Philly, they have a ton of talent, obviously. So, that's a good spot, but I just don't know if he's going to go to a team where he's never played before to continue his career. I feel like it's acceptable if he goes back to a place where he has a history, more so than a place where he's starting fresh.
Right. I want to play a video quick. Rick Bucher talking about LeBron and the courtship and basically his opinion on Rich Paul, what he says about basically the perception of LeBron today versus 10 years ago, and why teams may not really want to be in the LeBron business anymore. Here's a clip for
you. Propaganda about contacting every team in the league to determine the interest in LeBron. It's just window dressing. If teams were interested, he wouldn't have to reach out to them. It's a sign that LeBron and Rich are struggling with the new reality, which is that LeBron simply isn't valued the way he once was. He does not have the leverage he once did, which is not an indictment. No one is going to invest in a player who is turning 42 years old next season and comes with all the outsized attention and servicing that LeBron does. The only place that makes any sense is for him to return to Cleveland, where it all began.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I actually do agree with that. I haven't agreed with a lot of Rick Bucher's takes over the years, but I feel like that's pretty fair. I mean, he is 42. Yeah, it's not a shock that he doesn't have the same gravitas that he did when he was 25.
Nor should he.
Yeah. I mean, that's just the nature of getting older in sports. I mean, he's not the same player. It's not to say he's not still great and that he still can't impact winning, but I mean, he's not Miami LeBron or, second stint Cleveland LeBron. I mean, that stuff was a long time ago. It was over a decade ago. So, but does he have to go back to Cleveland? I mean, I'd like to see him go back to Cleveland, but if he goes to Miami, that's acceptable, I guess. And also, like, he's 42. He can do whatever he wants. I'm not going to hate on him for what he does in the absolute twilight of his career.
Funny thing is, like, the best basketball fit, in my opinion, is probably Golden State.
True, but
Steph playing off the ball, him running the point.
Yeah, that team in the East would be the best basketball fit. I just look at the age of that team and what they'd have. They're going to have to go through a gauntlet to be relevant, and also can all those old guys stay healthy? I feel like with Cleveland, you have Mitchell, you have Mobley. I know Harden's old, but as of today, they have Jared Allen. So I mean, like, those guys are not ancient by basketball standards. You would expect them getting through healthy, and Harden for the most part in his career has been very durable. They wouldn't need LeBron to play more than 25, 27, 28 minutes a game. They could sort of cruise through a little bit. I
hold
think.
that in the chamber until the playoffs. Yep.
Yeah. I think that in Golden State, he'd have to lift a pretty heavy load. And look, I know that Steph and LeBron have always been great together on Team USA. So I'm sure that there is part of that where there's a curiosity of, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to play with Steph. It would be a great basketball marriage. But again, the age of those two players and the potential for injury, plus, you don't know what's going on with Jimmy Butler. Is he going to come back on the Tatum timeline like in March? Is he going to be out for the whole season? How is that going to affect?
Very quiet situation too. Also, nothing on that front about trading that Butler contract whatsoever. Nothing.
Yeah, and I mean, look, if you're going to trade it for Anthony Davis, I mean, there's no guarantee that that's going to be any better than just holding on to Butler and hoping that he comes back, because Anthony Davis is hurt so often. So that's
it's about hurt. That's a guy.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know that I'd want to lean into a roster that's got an old LeBron, an old AD, an always injured AD, and then an older Steph. I mean, you're talking about all these guys that are in their mid to late 30s, and in LeBron's case, turning 42. Like, that is super old. And I just don't see that getting through, again, OKC, who I think is going to be a lot better and hopefully for their sake healthy, San Antonio, who's on the rise, and then, you just go on down the list.
Right. Well, we'll see. If you had to make a prediction now, where'd you go?
I would say Cleveland if I had to make a prediction, but I wouldn't rule out Miami as of today. I also don't think it's going to be a decision that's made in the next day or two. I think that they're probably going to milk this out for a little while.
You think within 7 days? Prediction. Historically, he waits like 2 weeks.
I would say by July 20th. So I guess I'll give him 2 weeks to make a decision, because at that point, Summer League, everybody's gathered in Vegas for Summer League. So agents are there, personnel is there. Typically, once Summer League ends on July 19th, the NBA goes on vacation until training camp. So, I mean, like, until late August, early September, the league's on vacation. And in his case, I don't think it's smart to just drop in on a team. I think you want to have some planning. You want to give them some advance notice, some advance X's and O's time. Like, let's say he goes to Cleveland. I mean, Kenny Atkinson doesn't want to find that out while he's in training camp that he's going to get LeBron James. I mean, give him the time to work that into his sets and all that, to prepare for it, just in my opinion.
My guess is we found this week. We'll find this week. I think, I think teams not going to want to, dilly daddle either. Like, now, if he's going to that minimum, then it's easy to fit him in, because like it's not going to take much of a salary crash course to make that work. But if there's going to be some significant salary on that roster, there has to be some moves being made and some things being done before to make that official. So I think the vet minimum thing is in play. I think that's in play, honestly.
And in the case of Cleveland, do you want to then move one of your other pieces? It probably wouldn't be Mobley. It would probably be Jared Allen to just
if you need to. If you don't have to, don't do it.
Yeah, but I mean, they might look at it and say we want more shooting alongside LeBron. Like, is Max Strus, Donovan Mitchell? After that, you probably got LeBron as the third best 3-point shooter. Do they want someone more reliable around him with his passing, his vision, all that sort of stuff? So I mean, again, those are the decisions that teams will have to make. Either Miami or whomever.
I saw reports were trying to move Max Strus.
Yeah, I mean that I would imagine is a salary type thing. So,
somebody goes, "You take back Miami?" Go, yeah, of course I can back Miami, but not that salary.
Yeah,
you can't afford them, bro. We're already a first Abram team and a first being second Abram team with any move being made. So come on, no.
Yeah, I mean, I think Strus is a little bit of a desirable player, just not at that number. So then you're probably going to have to attach, 2 seconds or something like that to get off of him, because he can still help a team. It's not as if he's told dead money.
Right. Before I get